You are here today for a reason, and this moment is not happening by chance. There are times in life when the heart grows quiet and slowly becomes filled with uncertainty. Even then, deep inside you, in the calm place where your deepest truth lives, you have already felt the answer. This is one of those meaningful moments. What you are about to hear is not ordinary advice or empty conversation. It is a thoughtful response to the questions you have been asking within yourself for many days, maybe even for weeks during those quiet moments when your mind would not stop searching. Today you are arriving at the point where your deepest emotions begin to meet the reality you have been hoping for. You have felt a connection that seems stronger than logic or simple explanation. Before we continue, if this message already speaks to your heart, take a second to like the video, because what comes next may explain more than you expected. You have sensed a powerful attraction and a deep emotional bond with someone that has never been easy to describe. There were moments when you convinced yourself it was only imagination. Maybe it was just hope. Maybe it was simply your heart trying to protect itself from loneliness. But today I want to offer a different perspective. The feelings you have experienced, the energy that rises whenever this person enters your thoughts, and the strange sense that you have somehow known them much longer than this lifetime of memories, are not automatically meaningless. They are not simply random thoughts, and they may not be the stories you once feared you had invented. Along your journey, you have noticed meaningful moments that seem to gently point you towards something you were hesitant to accept because you did not want your heart to be hurt again. Stay with me, because what comes next may connect pieces you never realized belonged together. As you continue listening, you may begin to understand why this person's feelings have seemed so difficult to read, even if their actions appear different today. Your confusion may slowly begin to soften as you recognize things you had overlooked before. It does not matter if your heart has felt unusually heavy recently, or if this person has become quieter, more distant, or harder to understand. Sometimes silence carries its own message, even when no words are spoken. That silence often creates questions instead of answers, yet it also invites deeper reflection. Life has a surprising way of bringing people together long before either of them fully understands what is happening. The heart often notices something meaningful before the mind can explain it. That may be one reason you are still listening right now. Part of you has been searching for reassurance that reaches beyond ordinary conversations. We often spend too much time trying to explain emotions that cannot always be measured by logic alone. Some experiences are understood more clearly through quiet awareness than through endless analysis. That does not automatically mean every feeling reflects reality, but it does mean your emotions deserve honest attention instead of immediate dismissal. If you have wondered whether you were simply overthinking everything, keep watching, because the next part may help you see your situation from a completely different angle. Sometimes the answers you have been chasing are much closer than they first appear. Waiting patiently until you are finally ready to notice them. You are simply moving through a stage that many people experience before discovering a love that feels deeper than ordinary relationships. It is the kind of connection that reaches beyond surface emotions and touches something much more meaningful within. Right now, it may feel as if you are witnessing the beginning of a powerful recognition between two people whose lives somehow seem meant to cross. There is an important message for you today. The doubts you carry are not always proof that this person does not care. Many times those doubts grow from emotional wounds that have never fully healed. When someone enters your life with a presence that changes the way you feel, and with a look that seems to reach places inside you that no one else has ever seen, old fears can suddenly rise to the surface. Your natural defenses respond because something new often feels unfamiliar. Part of you quickly recognizes the comfort of this connection, while another part, shaped by painful experiences, begins creating walls built from fear, uncertainty, and hesitation. That is why you have spent so many evenings asking yourself the same questions again and again. Is this feeling real? Does the other person truly feel something similar? Or have I simply become attached to an idea that cannot yet be fully understood? If any of this feels familiar, stay with me until the end, because the next part may help you see your own story in a completely different light. Sometimes the answers arrive quietly, one piece at a time, and they appear only when you are finally willing to notice what has been there all along. If you have recently felt an unusually deep connection with someone, you may have noticed that no matter how hard you try to move on, create distance, ignore your emotions, or convince yourself to let everything go, the same feeling somehow finds its way back. It returns softly, yet with surprising strength. That repeated pull is not always pride, emotional dependence, or wishful thinking. Sometimes certain connections leave a lasting impression because they have changed something important inside you. You have searched for reassurance many times. You have looked for small signs during quiet moments, hoping something would finally bring clarity. Even when little moments appeared, they often seemed too ordinary to trust. But today you may begin looking at those moments differently. The glance that quickly looked away because it revealed more than words ever could. The short message that seemed simple on the surface, but carried unexpected meaning. The change you notice in your own emotions whenever this person is nearby, or even when they quietly enter your thoughts without warning. None of those experiences automatically prove what another person feels, yet they can remind you to pay attention to what is happening inside your own heart. Real love rarely announces itself through dramatic speeches or unforgettable scenes. More often capital scenes, it reveals itself through consistency, gentle moments, meaningful actions, and a calm presence that slowly becomes impossible to ignore. Keep watching, because what comes next may connect several pieces that have remained unanswered for far too long. It follows one simple purpose: to protect you from what feels dangerous. When this connection entered your life, the protective part of your mind reacted almost immediately. Why? Because deep love often asks you to open your heart, become emotionally honest, and stop hiding behind fear or constant expectations. The part of you that still remembers old pain quickly becomes alert. It whispers that this feels too perfect, that it may only lead to disappointment, and that you should protect yourself before history repeats itself. It encourages you to step back before your heart has another chance to break. From this point forward, your greatest challenge is learning to recognize two very different inner voices. One is loud, restless and filled with fear. The other is quiet, steady and surprisingly peaceful. Fear always demands immediate answers. It fills your thoughts with endless questions and creates an urgent need to search for reassurance. It appears as tension in your body, sleepless nights, and the habit of checking your phone over and over again, hoping for one message that will finally calm your mind. It tells you that if they do not reach out today, they no longer care. It convinces you that if they fail to say exactly what you hope to hear, they must already be drifting away. That voice steals your peace one thought at a time. But there is another voice that feels completely different. It does not shout. It never rushes. It simply remains. Even when uncertainty appears, a quiet feeling deep inside continues reminding you that not every silence is rejection, and not every delay is the end of the story. Stay with me, because what comes next may completely change the way you understand the emotions you have been carrying. Sometimes the greatest answers arrive not through louder noise, but through deeper calm. When that quiet peace begins to grow, something important changes inside you. You slowly realize that you are not simply imagining everything. You are allowing yourself to experience something honest, meaningful, and deeply personal. Much of the conflict you have been feeling comes from old emotional experiences that still influence the present. Think about your past for a moment. If you have ever been hurt, rejected, or left behind, your mind naturally tries to protect you by expecting the same outcome again. It quietly places yesterday's pain onto today's connection, convincing you that this person will eventually do exactly what others once did. Yet the deeper truth may be different. Perhaps you are not truly questioning whether they care. Perhaps you are questioning whether you can receive a love this meaningful without fear taking control. That realization changes everything. Sometimes life places certain people in front of us, not only to bring joy but also to reveal the fears we have hidden for years. This connection may be encouraging you to move beyond familiar patterns, challenge old beliefs, and discover a stronger version of yourself. Instead of accepting only small moments of affection, you begin believing that healthy, consistent love is something you are worthy of receiving. Every time fear rises again, it can become another opportunity to heal, instead of another reason to run away. Fear returning does not always mean love is fading. Sometimes it simply means an old wound has surfaced because it is finally ready to be understood and released. Keep watching, because the next part may explain why this connection feels impossible to forget, even after you have tried countless times to move on. No matter how many times you tell yourself to let go, create distance, or convince yourself that it is over, something inside continues pulling your attention back. That feeling does not always exist because you are trapped. Sometimes meaningful connections leave lasting changes that cannot simply be erased with logic alone. They stay because they have already transformed part of who you are. Even when you argue with yourself, distract your thoughts, or focus on other parts of life, the memory quietly returns. It feels less like a chain and more like a gentle reminder that some experiences leave a permanent mark on the heart. Yet one important question still remains. If this connection feels so strong, why does the other person sometimes appear quiet, distant, or difficult to understand? The answer may be more complex than it first seems. Deep emotional connections often affect both people in different ways. While one person becomes more expressive, the other may become more silent as they try to process emotions they never expected to face. They are not always stepping away because they do not care. Sometimes they are facing their own fears, their own unanswered questions, and their own emotional struggles. Just as this connection has brought hidden feelings to the surface within you, it may also be doing the same for them. Moments like these can feel confusing, but they also invite growth, patience, and understanding. What appears to be distance on the outside may actually be someone quietly trying to understand the changes happening within themselves. That possibility is worth considering before fear writes the ending to a story that may still be unfolding. For the human mind, which naturally wants certainty and control, a connection like this can feel overwhelming. That is why the distance you are experiencing does not always have to mean rejection. Sometimes it is a form of emotional protection from feelings that suddenly become too powerful to process. In many deep relationships, people describe a pattern where one person seems to step back while the other feels pulled closer. The person creating distance is not always running away from you. Very often, they are trying to understand themselves and the powerful emotions your presence has awakened. Their feelings become so intense that they begin questioning whether they are ready, whether they are enough, or whether they might accidentally damage something they truly value. They fear losing control. They fear becoming vulnerable. They fear opening their heart completely after promising themselves they would never experience that kind of pain again. Those fears are usually connected to old disappointments that quietly shaped the way they protect themselves today. That is why their silence should not always be read as proof that they do not care. Sometimes silence becomes a temporary space where they try to make sense of emotions they never expected to face. If this speaks to your situation, stay with me, because the next part may completely change the way you look at this period of distance. What feels confusing today may actually be preparing you to understand something much deeper than you imagined. On the other side of this pattern, you may notice yourself becoming the one who keeps reaching for answers, even if only in your thoughts. When distance appears, fear naturally begins to speak louder. You want to send another message, you want to explain your feelings, you want to fix everything before it slips away. You hope that if you try just a little harder, everything will finally return to normal. Yet this pattern often repeats itself in circles. The more one person pushes forward, the more the other may feel the need to step back and create space. That is why one of life's most difficult lessons is also one of its most powerful. Sometimes creating space allows hearts to move closer than constant pursuit ever could. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop allowing fear to control your actions. Instead of spending every day waiting for someone else's next move, you slowly begin returning your attention to your own healing, your own purpose, and your own peace. Something surprising begins to happen when you make that choice. The emotional pressure starts fading. The energy between you becomes lighter. The connection no longer feels driven by fear or urgency. Keep watching, because the next idea may completely change the way you understand what real emotional strength actually looks like. Often the greatest turning point begins the moment you stop trying to force one. As you choose your own growth, your confidence slowly returns. You remember that your value has never depended on someone else's immediate response. You begin living your own life again, instead of measuring every day by another person's attention. When that happens, the energy between both of you naturally shifts. The pressure disappears, and what once felt tense becomes calmer. If there is a genuine connection, it has a better chance to grow when both people are standing on their own feet, rather than depending on each other to feel complete. This period of separation is not necessarily a punishment. Sometimes it becomes a season of preparation. It gives each person time to heal old fears, gain new understanding, and build a stronger emotional foundation. Healthy relationships are rarely built on constant anxiety, emotional dependence, or fear of losing one another. They become stronger through honesty, personal growth, and two people choosing each other freely rather than from insecurity. As you continue focusing on your own healing, you release the fears that once controlled your decisions. If this message has encouraged you, share it with someone who may need these words today, because encouragement often reaches people at exactly the right moment. Trust that what is truly meant for your life does not depend only on chasing. It grows through patience, wisdom, and healthy choices. The distance you see today does not automatically decide tomorrow's outcome. Sometimes it simply creates the space both hearts need to become stronger before the next chapter begins. Even if you cannot yet see every answer, growth may already be happening in ways that neither of you fully understands. For the human mind, which always wants certainty and control, a connection like this can feel deeply unsettling. That is why the distance you are experiencing should not immediately be seen as rejection. Very often it becomes a form of emotional protection from feelings that suddenly become too powerful to handle. In many meaningful connections, there seems to be a pattern where one person steps back while the other naturally moves closer. The one creating distance is not always running away from you. More often, they are trying to understand themselves and the powerful emotions that your presence has awakened inside them. They may feel things they have never experienced before. Their emotions become so strong that they begin wondering whether they are truly ready for this kind of love. They question whether they are enough. They worry about making mistakes. They fear damaging something that already feels precious. They are afraid of losing control, opening their heart completely, or allowing themselves to become emotionally exposed again after promising themselves they never would. These fears are usually connected to painful memories they have carried quietly for years. That is why their silence does not always mean they have stopped caring. Sometimes silence becomes a temporary shelter, where they try to understand emotions that arrived faster than they expected. Stay with me, because what comes next may completely change the way you have been looking at this period of distance. The answer is often much deeper than it first appears, and by the end you may see this situation from a perspective that brings far more peace than fear. Sometimes the heart understands what the mind cannot explain for a very long time, and that difference creates confusion before it creates clarity. On the other side of this experience, you may notice yourself becoming the one searching for answers. Even if you never say anything out loud, your thoughts continue reaching toward them. When distance appears, fear begins speaking louder than peace. You feel the urge to send another message. You want to explain your feelings once more. You want to repair everything immediately before it slips away. You believe that if you just find the right words, everything will suddenly become clear. Yet this pattern often repeats itself over and over. The more one person tries to close the gap through fear, the more the other person may feel they need extra space to breathe and process everything happening inside them. This creates a cycle that leaves both people feeling misunderstood. That is why one of the greatest lessons in life is also one of the hardest to accept. Sometimes creating space allows two hearts to move closer than constant effort ever could. Letting go does not mean giving up. It does not mean you stop caring. It simply means you stop allowing fear to make every decision for you. Instead of measuring your happiness by someone else's next message, you slowly begin returning your attention to your own peace, your own healing, your own dreams, and your own purpose. The moment you do that, something remarkable begins to change. The pressure starts fading, the emotional weight becomes lighter. The connection is no longer driven by anxiety or urgency, but by calm understanding. Keep watching, because the next part explains why this shift is often the turning point people never expect. The greatest changes rarely begin outside of you. They almost always begin quietly within. As you continue choosing your own growth, your confidence slowly returns. You remember that your worth has never depended on another person's attention or immediate response. You begin enjoying your own life again. You laugh more easily. You sleep more peacefully. You stop checking your phone every few minutes looking for reassurance. Instead, you begin trusting yourself again. When that happens, the energy between both of you naturally changes. The pressure disappears. What once felt heavy slowly becomes lighter. If this connection is genuine, it has the opportunity to grow in a healthier way, because neither person is acting from fear anymore. This period of separation is not necessarily a punishment. Sometimes it becomes a season of preparation. It gives each person the opportunity to heal old emotional wounds, gain greater self-awareness, and build a stronger foundation before moving forward. Healthy love is rarely built upon constant anxiety, emotional dependence, or the fear of losing someone every single day. It grows through patience, honesty, personal growth, mutual respect, and two people choosing each other freely rather than desperately. Every day you invest in becoming stronger emotionally, you release another layer of fear that once controlled your choices. If this message speaks to your heart, take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who may also need these words today, because encouragement often arrives exactly when someone is ready to hear it. Trust that what truly belongs in your life does not need to be forced into place. It grows through wisdom, healthy choices, steady actions, and perfect timing. The distance you see today does not automatically decide tomorrow's ending. Sometimes it simply creates the room both hearts need to become stronger before the next chapter begins. Even when you cannot yet see the full picture, growth may already be taking place behind the scenes in ways that neither of you fully understands. One day you may look back at this season and realize that what felt like silence was quietly preparing both of you for something far stronger than either of you could have imagined.